Relapse is something that we don't talk enough and openly about, and yet it's a really common part of recovery. And recently I was reading an article by Jack Vidgen, whose brave story just reminds us that setbacks do not define you. It's how you choose to keep moving that does. And in today's episode, we're going to explore why relapsing is not a failure, how to break free from the shame, and the importance of self-compassion towards that path to healing. So I really don't think, and it's not discussed enough, that how difficult it could be to come back from an addiction. So having studied the clinical hypnotherapy, addictions can come about for a number of reasons, and sometimes there's a common theme towards it, which I won't go into today, but it's often seen as you're weak. You have this addiction. You're brought up in a beautiful family. How do you have this addiction? It's shame, and that doesn't help the person that's trying to deal with that addiction. And it's going to be really hard for somebody to come out of that addiction if somebody just keeps, you're weak, you failed, get over it, whatever. That addiction is probably covering something. It's probably masking something. And it's not just as easy as waking up and thinking, yep, cool, like I'm done. I don't drink anymore. I don't do drugs, or whatever that addiction is. And I think there really needs to be more education around that addiction, and I definitely will be doing some podcasts on this now that I do have that clinical hypnotherapy background behind me, and go into depth and hopefully help you understand that addiction is there for a reason. Sometimes it's to, I remember somebody saying, you're doing it to kill yourself. And the response was, no, I'm doing it to stay alive, because if I don't do these drugs, I probably will go and kill myself. So, it's highly likely not what you think. And I think there just definitely needs to be more sympathy and more assistance with people who generally want to overcome whatever that addiction is. And it takes courage to be vulnerable and to put yourself out there like that. And when I was reading his article, I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, don't go hating on yourself. Like, don't say that you're a failure. Like, that's not it at all. Like, your article is going to be helping somebody, because there's probably highly likely that is someone that's going to be in the same circumstances as you, that has maybe tried rehab and then relapsed. So he's not going to be the first person who's done it, and he definitely won't be the last, but it's the support that we need to show those people who are trying to get better and trying to overcome that addiction. And it's not going to be an instant fix, especially if there's, something underlying as to why they have that addiction, for example, trauma. And I said, for some people, it's a matter of staying alive. By having that addiction, they might be scared that they will pass away because, they were doing the drugs so they don't do something silly, which I know that sounds counterintuitive, like you do drugs and you can pass away, but that's how, that's people's mindset sometimes. So, I really don't think that we should be so judgmental with addictions, or probably there's lots of things, but today is just in particular about addiction. And being in that public, being that public figure, it's even more difficult because you have more eyes on you. Like, if I had an addiction, not really kind of many people know me, so it's not like I'm going to be plastered upon the internet. But Jack Vidgen or anybody that is kind of famous and well known, it's going to be exacerbated because there's so many eyes, and the media is out there, and the media will probably go, hey, yep, look, back in rehab again because they failed. And we've seen that. We do see articles like that, and I think it's disgusting. It's not helpful at all. And, it's there to make them money. Like the articles are there, so the newspapers or media can make money from that at the detriment of the person that they're putting in front of that. So I think that's definitely something that needs to change. Just add that on my list of things to do. But relapsing can be just a normal part of the process. It doesn't necessarily have to be failure. Okay, so yep, a relapse. What was the connection this time? What made me do that? And can I avoid that situation again? So it's evaluating how that happened. You have support services out there. You have psychs. You have counsellors. Hypnotherapy can play a really big part in that as well. And that's another reason why I studied it. Like a lot of our clients that were coming to us, for example, in a family law matter, the relationships were ending because of some sort of addiction. So that could be drugs, alcohol, gambling, sex, like so many different things. And it was that addiction that had killed that relationship. So it's like, right, so I want to understand this better and what other support services are out there for people who would generally want to overcome this addiction. So that's kind of how my whole holistic hypnotherapy, RTT therapy, studies had come about. So it's definitely something that I will be doing further study on. I know in a prior podcast I said I'll be easing up on the study, but in relation to like addictions and grief, that's something that's relevant to the work that I do, and I would like to go into more depth with that. But a setback is just an opportunity to learn and grow and strengthen, and that's a setback from anything. That doesn't just have to be like a relapse from an addiction. And as I mentioned before, it's how you come out of that. It's like, yep, okay, I've done it. This was a trigger. Let's try and eliminate that trigger from my life next time, and let's have another crack at it. It's not like, yep, I'm going to have this addiction forever. Just shit happens. That's the type of person that I am. Let's go back to doing whatever it is. So we need to support the people that are really, really trying to change their lives. I think it's a danger to not discuss the shame and guilt that the person may be feeling. As I said, it would have been really hard to Jack to have had that article and saying, hey, yep, 8 weeks later, whatever it was, I've relapsed. Like, that's hard. And he's not the only person that it has happened to. Like it might have been a week. Like, congratulations, you got to the 6-8 week mark, whatever it is. Yay. Celebrate that. And it's really just going, okay, well, this was my trigger. I know not to do that next time. How can we avoid that? Or what can I learn from that? But that constant feeling of shame and guilt can lead to just a cycle of negative behavior, and it can make it even harder for that person to get that help or want to go get that help if we just keep shaming them. Sometimes we don't mean to do it. Sometimes we may mean to do it. I would suspect that the media probably intend to make somebody feel shit so they can sell an article. But we really can't have that person having that negative behaviour, because that's not going to be helpful in them overcoming whatever that addiction is. Self-compassion is a massive tool. So if you perhaps have relapsed, just have compassion. It's like, yep, okay, this doesn't define me. Let's learn from it. What can I do differently? Do I just need to go back to do the same thing because that was working? It was this, that, why it stopped working. Whatever that is, but you need to have compassion within yourself that shit happens. Let's get back on the horse and try again. And the people around you, the people that you surround yourself with, are going to be super important, because they're the people that are going to help you through it. If you are surrounded by negative people who just keep putting you down and saying that you're failing and whatever else, they're probably the people that you don't need to be around. You need to be around people who are going to support you and show you compassion so we can get you back on track. That could mean changing friends, spending less time with certain friends. It might mean keeping a distance from family members perhaps, or work colleagues. you might want to join. Like, there can be community groups sometimes that you can physically go to. Just consider the people that are around you who are going to help your recovery and the other people who are not going to help your recovery, because you're going to be wanting to be with the people that are going to help you, not the people that are not going to help you. You need to spend as minimal time with those people who will not move you forward, because that's just not going to benefit you. And reach out when you're struggling, and don't be ashamed of that. Don't isolate yourself. I've been running some workshops lately, and the last one had like 220 people or something register for it, and there was somebody openly on there considering suicide. And I was like, wow, for you to keep this a secret for so long. And I actually kept checking up on him. I'm like, right, I worked out who he was, found him in my system, and I was just emailing him, hey, I don't feel comfortable after the conversation that we had, in the webinar. Just want to make sure that you're okay. You have all these options around you. I'd recently done assist training through Lifeline, and he was actually an assist leader, so he was aware of all of that. I'm like, hey, okay, let's go back to your training. Can happen at any time. So, and again, I'm not just talking about addictions. I'm just talking about that was in a family law setting. So be really mindful that if you are struggling, you need to reach out, but you need to reach out to the right people. If you reach out to somebody that is just going to shoot you down, probably don't reach out to that person. Find somebody else that's going to be able to help you to move forward. So just be mindful of that. So, there's so many different other things that I could mention in this podcast. It was just really a quick one that I wanted to do, because when I saw the article, it just resonated with me. And it's not okay for you to feel shame. If you feel that, that's okay, but let's deal with that and let's move on. So if you are struggling with anything, please don't have that shame. Please don't have that guilt. Acknowledge that you need help beyond what you can do for yourself. Reach out to the right people, have the right support people around you. Limit energy and time with the people who are not going to support you and bring you forward. And just know that, it happens. So long as you learn from, that setback, let's jump back on the horse and do that again. But please be mindful, there is highly likely somebody else going through the exact same thing. And I have no doubt that somebody would have read that article who is in that situation, so has relapsed once, twice, 3 times, whatever it might be, and would have been really connected to it. So know that your story can also help others. And when you are on the other side of that addiction and it's no longer a concern, you could be there for the people that are going through the addiction, because you've lived it, you've experienced it. So consider on the other side of that the lives that you might be able to help as well. So I guess just please reach out to the right people if you do need a little bit of extra assistance. I know this time of year can be really hard. It was probably more before the new year, around that Christmas time, it can get really difficult for people. So if you are still struggling, please reach out. There are a number of places that you can reach out to. We have some on our website, and I'll put some in the show notes as well if you need some immediate assistance. And if you fall, that's cool. Let's just get you back out there and going again. So please share this with anybody who may be going through an addiction and feeling like they are a failure because they're perhaps relapsed. Tell them that they're not. Be there for them. I know that in the webinars I have been asked to do extra webinars, podcasts on how to help people like that. So that is on the list of things to do. I imagine it's going to be pretty heavy and I'm probably going to have to break it up into a few different podcasts to do with the topic, I suppose. So this one was just the intention of, hey, it's cool. Yep, let's just get you back on that horse. And, let's try again. That's the most important part. So please share this with somebody who you think might need it if they happen to have relapsed. And just know that you're not a failure, and please be there for your friends or your family if they're needing that extra support from you. And if you don't feel that you're the right person, please make sure that you hook them up with somebody like Lifeline, Beyond Blue, somebody in their local area that they might be able to physically go to, just so they don't feel so abandoned. So hopefully that's helped some people out there today. It was probably a bit more of a heavy podcast. Sorry, maybe should have warned you at the start of that. But please do look after yourself and please be kind. And I will catch you guys next time.